recording. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Not Another FPL podcast. We're joined today with our good friend Max, who's been in our mini league. He's been a champion. He's got 3 stripes on his collar, and he's an all-round FPL god. Max, so we want to kick off with you. How did you get on 23?
Evening, guys. Yeah, pretty well, to be honest with you. 81 points, so pretty solid. 500k game week rank. Definitely above average. I think I went up about 60k in places, up to nothing to write home about, but 280k overall. A pretty solid performance, to be honest with you. Dallas being the star player, I thought. And yeah, it was good overall. What about yourself?
Nice. Hang on, just quickly. So you made one game week transfer in for that week. Who was your transfer in?
Yeah, it flopped, to be honest. It was Loughton in for holding.
Oh, so, I feel that. I brought in Ben Mee, and that was so disappointing because watching like the highlights from that game, I think Burnley were really unlucky to concede, so it should have been a clean sheet. But hey ho. I think you did that probably in preparation for the double game week.
Absolutely.
Very nice.
Thought get in there early and steal a quick clean sheet before the double came along, but wasn't to be, unfortunately.
I can see that thinking.
How'd you get on, James?
So 69 points for me. I'm now 1.4 million in the world. I'm 17th in the mini league. Brought in Rashford this week, and I also brought back Bamford. Regrettably, obviously sold him 2 weeks ago. Since then, he's got 10 points a game. Obviously, lovely to see. Put the armband on Rashford because I wanted to be a differential in the mini leagues. Fancied him to do well and should have done better than 5 points, I thought. But still, I guess you think that's the minimum you want your captaincy to get. But yeah, midfield done well. Creswell, again, probably my saviour of the season, getting me 9 points. DCL, obviously, with that late goal. But yeah, 69 all out, mate. So that's it. What about you?
Very nice, a very respectable score. Yeah, I didn't do too bad. Following up after disastrous one after the wild card the week previous, landed 75 points. So probably played my wild card a week too soon. I actually went down in the mini league to our guest here, Max. But I don't mind that because he's a good FPL manager. If I was going down to you, James, then yeah, I'd be bothered. But
cheers, mate.
But yeah, it's
I can understand
that James Justin, isn't he? What? Not just a clean sheet, but those 3 bonus points, which just make all the difference. Obviously, Gundogan had a great game. I tried being a bit different and captaining Rafinha.
Very different.
Very different. It was a bit out there. He done that lovely bit of skill anyway. Turned and nutmeg the defender. I think he's a really classy player in that Leeds outfit. But ultimately, I did take out Bamford at the same time you did. And that's hurt me a little bit. It was nice to see DCL get his 12 points. It was a little bit unexpected about how that turned out. But overall, I think it was a pretty solid game week. Looking at a 315k overall rank. And onwards to game week 24, which, as you can see, after these FA Cup games, is a bit of a nightmare because I've woke up in the morning, I've got 4 flags in the team.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of FPL managers are going to be faced with something similar. So I think a really good point of conversation would be, what would you guys do? Or what are you going to do, or what would you recommend for any FPL managers who are staring not just 1, but 2 or 3 flags in their current team?
Wow. I think I'll kick off and probably say Antonio, I think it's just fatigue. So I think he will play. I think he was rested in the game against United. So I wouldn't really count him as a worry. I think your big worries, and most of the people's worries, would be DCL. What to do with him. Now, for you, I think it'd be pretty not obvious, but obviously given that you haven't got Bamford, I think, and they've got the double, I probably would go DCL to Bamford. But obviously if you have Bamford, then all depends on who you fancy for the next couple, I think. And Cavani probably would be my shout for DCL if you've got the funds. But yeah, that's probably where I would go with that. What do you think, Max?
For me, I mean, I've got one eye a bit further in advance, and it really there is whispers of maybe another double game week coming up sooner rather than later, possibly in 26. And so, with that in mind, if you were with someone who would be using the wildcard in preparation for that double game week, then you might fancy trying to take advantage of that peak fixture of Man United against West Brom and go Cavani, like you said, Jamer. Or it really depends. If you didn't have your wild card, like someone like Dom doesn't, then I think going Bamford, it's just sometimes the obvious shout is obvious for a reason, and I would be going there if I didn't have a wild card. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Bamford is the obvious shout. You're not really spending any more money. He's second in the strikers, top goal scorer to Harry Kane. Leeds do have that double game week, which is obviously appealing. The only thing that, for me, that's stopping me doing that is I've got Kane in my sights for after the Spurs City game, and I wouldn't want to do that transfer knowing I've got other flags in my team, and other managers could have the same. I think looking at the injuries, I agree with what you were saying, James. Antonio looks like he probably will feature against Sheffield United, so it's more of a precaution. DCL, apparently he's heard a pop in his knee, and he's going to be having a scan.
Yeah, it sounded terrible.
That don't sound promising. James Justin got a stretcher off, but I think he could have walked off the pitch, but still, that's not looking promising. Good. So I don't really want to do minus points. So what would you say? If I didn't want to do minus points, would you still recommend going to Bamford if I was waiting to get Kane the week after?
Well, I think because you've obviously got quite a good squad, holding on wouldn't be that much of a bad thing to do. Like you've obviously got Saka, who's obviously at home to Leeds. Now we know Leeds are really inconsistent, so you've got obviously Trent, and we all know what happened when Trent played Leicester couple of years ago, was it? No, last year. Don't think it'll happen this time, but you've got a very strong bench. So, yeah, if you wanted to hold off and then go to Kane, I don't see that as a bad thing to do. It's the ones that haven't got a squad like me that might want to try and get some quick points. And yeah, I was also going to say, what happens if you do have Bamford and DCL and Antonio? Like, what would you do with DCL if you already have Bamford?
Yeah, that's
what I was going to say. I mean, I would more slightly disagree with what Jamie is saying, just because I couldn't see anyone going into that double game week for Leeds not having Bamford. I just think he's near enough a player you have to have in that double game week. Even if you like you, Dom, and you have Rafinha as well, I think doubling up would be a great shout.
Yeah, I would side with you there, Max, because I've seen people touting having triple Leeds because Dallas, again, I'm so sad I actually got rid of Dallas on my wild card because I had him from very early in the season, and he's still popping up with those assists. He's always out of position in the favour of attacking. Bamford's a really interesting one though because he does get the chances. Because I do have Rafinha, I am less inclined to get Bamford, but I do feel that he's going to hurt me. So I do agree that he is going to be the biggest worry if I don't own him going into the double game week.
Yeah, that's true. My assumption is that most people have got Bamford, and if you look, I think he's nearly 50% owned or 45% owned on the game.
Yeah.
So 50. So if I'm assuming that most people in our mini league actually have Bamford, I mean, you've already got a Leeds coverage. If you were to go, like you've said, there's premiums coming back, like the likes of Kane, Vardy. That might be an option. I presume you've got money in the bank because obviously you've got Gundogan instead of Sterling. So I think you said you've got about 5 mil. So yeah, I think there's options if you've got, like in your case, Leeds cover.
Would you go Bamford in now though for that Arsenal game? Because obviously we're talking about the double game week, but that's game week 25. Do you? I mean, I think Leeds drew 0-0 with Arsenal in the first game they played early in the season. Do you see Bamford scoring in that game, or do you think that's possibly a blank and maybe again a move too soon? When, like I say, not just myself but other managers who might have multiple flags in their team. Like I'm thinking maybe I should get rid of James Justin over DCL this week, possibly.
Yeah, it could be a move too soon. I mean, I don't really. You'd say it's doubtful to score against Arsenal, but at the same time, obviously transfers are sacred, and we don't want to be making too many hits down the line. So something could come up next week where you plan to get Bamford in next week, but all of a sudden you need to use that transfer for something else. So I wouldn't put you off just going there this week. If it was me, I'm maybe slightly more of a safe manager, some might say. But I would probably
I'd
just get Bamford in at the same time. For your team, Dom, I don't think it's not defined as a safe move because you have Rafinha. Like those guys together, what percentage of the game or the league, our league, is going to have both of them? I don't think anyone in our league has both of them.
Yeah,
No, I don't think
that's a very good point actually, because if I were to go Bamford and have Bamford Rafinha, if it was say a goal and assist involvement, then you're right, the percentage would be very little, so you'd be making a gain. Whereas if you were just getting in Bamford, you'd just be almost covering that position, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with keeping Antonio this week, but going forward, I mean, his fixtures aren't great. They do definitely stiffen up from 25 onwards. And I mean, I would think if you were thinking of getting Kane or Vardy, and I would probably, even though Antonio's in form, I would see that as the place to upgrade to Vardy or Kane, and then be getting Bamford in for DCL.
Yeah, because my original thoughts before the injury was Antonio would be leaving my game after the Sheffield United fixture, and he would get upgraded to Harry Kane. That was in my sights. It's only because of these flags now, which is got me thinking differently. So, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. On the flip side of that, if you don't go Bamford for the Arsenal game, and he does blank, you could make a great leap.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah,
I think
true, especially with the double gate coming up. And
sorry, you go, Max.
for me, with the double game week coming up, I just think it's a bit of a punt, really. But someone like Ashley Barnes, who's got two good fixtures with Palace away and Fulham at home. You know, if you're a chaser, if you're someone down in, for example, 17th, then I would probably be looking at someone like that as a pretty decent move. And with West Brom coming up in game week 25 as well, it might be the time to hop on a bit of a punt like that. I think he's still on pens, so why not? Why not? I mean, Jamie, you're someone that's had a Burnley striker in their team for quite a while this season.
I've had a Burnley striker in my team before, and I tell you what, it was the worst thing I've ever done. So I was just going to say to you boys, you both obviously have Burnley players. Are you all Burnleyed out for the double, considering you've obviously gone for Lowton and me, or do you see yourself? Obviously, you've got hits. You've got obviously yellow flags to worry about now, but do you see yourself getting maybe Pope in for the double defense, or because I'm thinking about getting one defender in?
I think if you're bringing in Burnley assets, Burnley have never been a team that scream lots and lots of goals, so it's quite hard to predict who is going to get those goals. In previous seasons, I agree with what you're saying, Max. Barnes would probably be the safest shout if you were going to go for a striker from them. But the thing about Burnley is since they come to the Prem, they've always been that team where they pick up the majority of their points at home. I know that goes against how this season's played out, and most of the away teams have actually won. But I reckon we'll be looking back at this, and they've got Palace away, Fulham at home, and West Brom at home. I wouldn't be surprised if they got 6 points from Fulham and West Brom at home and a clean sheet in there. So I would be more inclined to jump on the defence of
100%.
Especially as the second fixture, Fulham, they've conceded like the most headed chances, and your likes of like your Ben Mee or your
Tarkis, yeah,
they're going to be really appealing for that. So because you've got a potential clean sheet and attacking returns there from a defender. I think Popey speaks for himself. He's had that little niggle. He's had a flag, but Daichi has turned around and said he's back in training. So if you want to move for a goalkeeper, then do it. He is a little bit more expensive than going for your Ben Mee or your Tarkowskis. So if money's a factor, you might want to go for a defender over a goalkeeper. But I think I'd be definitely going for a defensive asset rather than maybe a striker for a Burnley for those games.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm looking to do. Still, yeah, obviously to see what to do with Calvert-Lewin. But yeah, I definitely think one of me or Taki will be in my team. But yeah, no, I think. Did you have anything to say on that, Max?
Yeah, if it was me, I think he's worth the extra you're paying for him, Pope, compared to the defenders. I know I like what Dom's saying about the headed chances, and it could come to fruition. But he scored 33 points more than any defender and 17 bonus points.
It's the saves, isn't it? Saves is
yeah,
huge.
we could easily be looking back, and he could be one of them players that just sweeps up in a double game week. You've seen him so many times before, and yeah, I'm really looking to get him in.
But will he make that many saves against the teams he's playing? I mean, I think a lot of these save points, and they come against a team where he keeps a clean sheet unexpectedly. That's where he's been getting the big drops. Against these teams, is he likely to get the save points? I'm not sure. He probably will. I'm not trying to knock him, but yeah, I think he's definitely up there with someone I could get. I just don't know if he's more likely to get more points than someone like Taki or me. I think
what I would
probably you'd say, yeah.
That, though, to go against what you're saying there, James, is if you put someone like Nick Pope in, you'd probably keep him to the end of the season. Whereas if you had your Ben Mee or your Tarkowskis, you might look to transfer him out in a few game weeks' time.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a bit of an interesting position because I'm only actually going to be doing this for 1 week. I'm probably going to wild card in 25. So I will literally just bring in Pope for 1 game week and then he won't be in my wildcard team. So it's all a bit up in the air, as we all know, because of the double game week coming up in 26. But I'm looking to likely double game week in 26. But yeah, no, if you obviously haven't got your wild card, obviously like yourself, then these moves are obviously a lot more important. But I'm looking just for a quick double game week big burst of points before I hit my
so just to sort of recap that little bit then, for someone like myself, or if you've got, say, Justin in your team, I think, and you don't already have a Burnley defender, it's quite an easy move to go from Justin to maybe a Burnley defender for the double.
100%.
If you've got someone like McCarthy in goal, you might want to consider going across to Pope if you don't have any injuries. But what would you advise then, James, for people who aren't thinking about using their wild card the week after next, and they've got flags in their team? Where would you move to? Because we've just said then, I mean, Max was an advocate of taking a gamble on Barnes, which, I can sort of get behind a little bit, but it doesn't fill me with confidence, only because I think there are really good options now up front, like we just spoke about Bamford and whatnot. So what would you do? Would you be targeting any of those teams in the double game week, considering it's only Burnley, Fulham, City and Everton?
Yeah, that's a good point. I presume everyone's pretty much got 3 Man City. Everton is really interesting. Obviously now, I don't think anyone will have any Man City. Everton, apart from if they have a Digne. It's interesting because I'd probably say Justin to a Taki or a me would be a fine transfer. I think for 3 game weeks, I think it would be, you can, or if you wanted to go even lower and get in maybe a Peters or a Lowton like Max has, that could be having a Burnley defender for 4.4 on your bench is a perfect 4th or 5th defender. So I wouldn't even worry too much about transferring them out after the little burst. So yeah, it all depends on, obviously everyone's situations are different, aren't they? So, but yeah, I still think it'd probably be worth, depending on your squad, getting a Burnley player in defence.
Yeah, I think if you don't have a Burnley player in defence, you have to get at least one for the double game week. I presume you've already got Free City. If you don't have Free City, then that's a no-brainer. That goes above getting in a Burnley player. And if you didn't want either of those, I'd probably go to Man United. They've got good 2 fixtures coming up with West Brom away and Newcastle at home. And a player like Shaw I believe you can get him for that similar price.
Yeah.
And even Wan-Bissaka, if you can afford the extra bit more, they've been great recently.
But I'm gonna be heading into the game week without 3 Man City players. So would you say I need to do something about that?
What Man City players you got?
I've got Cancelo and Gundogan.
That's interesting.
And obviously I've got to transfer out probably Justin. I've got flags with DCL and Antonio. I'm probably going to keep Antonio. DCL looks like it's probably more serious. Where have I gone wrong there with my thinking? Would you guys be saying, Dom, you need to be getting 3 Man City players in? Because remember, they are playing Tottenham, who Mourinho, whilst he's been at Tottenham, has a very good record against Man City. And then they're going to Everton, who are arguably just as good as Tottenham.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I think you should just go there. I mean, it's just an obvious move to be getting Stones in. I know you probably aren't that keen on that, Dom, because I know you had. Did you have him up until quite recently?
Yeah, I had John Stones. The thing is, one of the things that I'm trying to be better at this season is I don't mind transferring players back in that I've already had. In previous seasons, I've always been reluctant to do that. I feel like once they've been in your team, you don't want to get them back, and then you get stung by that. So I've got no issue going back, but I'm just wondering, would I go back? I mean, on paper, yes, City are the form team. Yes, it is Man City, but I don't know whether Jesus is going to start up front. I don't know whether Sterling's going to start up front with Mahrez, Foden, Bernardo Silva. You're saying John Stones, but Laporte could play one of those games. Is it as black and white as you have to get 3 Man City players in, and these are the 3 Man City players I recommend?
Yeah, I think that's first of all very tough on what 3 you should get, because I thought Diaz was the one that was nailed. And maybe Stones, was getting rotated by Laporte. But for you, Dom, I personally would just say Bamford would be my main person on the radar for DCL, because I think his next 3 games, I know again away at Arsenal could be anything, but I think he is also going to be your long-term pick. Now, with Man City's games coming up with the Champions League, which is obviously a week coming next week, so 2 weeks yesterday, I think it is. Who knows who's going to be playing? You're going to be having game weeks where you've got 3 Man City players, which you've all seen before, and none of them are playing. And then you could have Bamford there going in and getting the points. So I wouldn't say 3 Man City players is actually essential for you. I think you've got 2 perfectly good Man City players there. Your squad's massive anyway. So my priority for you would probably be, getting Calvert-Lewin out for Justin and maybe get rid of JJ.
Yeah, so if you was in a position then where maybe you didn't have a strong playing bench, you would probably utilise getting in players in that double game week from who you already said, Leeds, Bamford and City. Like I say, my concern is I could put John Stones in and he only plays 1 out of those games anyway.
Well, exactly. And
I agree, it could happen. It could happen, and it's painful. I mean, I think, James, you had a couple of weeks ago where you had all 3 City players and none of them played. I had 2 and none of them played.
No,
but
exactly.
Dom's got the big squad. It can cope with that, and I think the obvious moves is getting in Stones for Digne and Bamford for DCL. I think that's such solid shouts, and they've kept 13 clean sheets already this season out of 23 games. It's pretty unbelievable.
What do you think we are out then? Because I'm a bit alluded to
saying
how bad his injury is.
That's the thing. We're saying if Dom's players are fit, it can cope. But we're clearly looking at his team now, and we're saying a couple of his players probably aren't going to be fit. We're already.
But I'm taking those ones out.
Say that again.
Taking Digne and Calvert-Lewin out, or Justin and Calvert-Lewin, either one of those, and whichever one's obviously more injured, and I think his squad can cope with if Stones not playing 1 week. I mean, I really think you'd be unlucky for Stones and Cancelo both not to start. And when you think about the cumulative price of Stones, Cancelo and Gundogan, it's such great value for what's the best team in the league at the moment.
Yeah,
you could keep those guys and bench them when you want to bench them, play them when you want to play them. And I think.
So do you think?
I don't know.
Do you think
Mhm.
taking Digne out for a -4 is worth putting John Stones in, who might only play one out of the two and has two difficult fixtures where clean sheets aren't necessarily, nailed on?
It really depends on the severity of Justin's injury. If Justin's not too bad, then I'd rather keep Justin because he's got a good fixtures coming up all the way up to game week 30 and basically to the rest of the season beyond then.
Yeah.
So if it is just a knock, then yeah, it's okay for him to be out the next couple of games. And I would get rid of Digne because I don't know, he's a great player. And the assists he's got this season is unbelievable.
Yeah,
But
no,
the
he's
clean
class.
sheets just aren't coming, and it's a little bit,
One clean
it
sheet.
it doesn't matter too much about those assists. They become a bit, they don't matter when he's not getting the clean sheet, which means he's not getting the bonus on top of them. Like that, those assists could be going from 4 points to 12 points if he's keeping that clean sheet, because then he's automatically getting the bonus, or most likely anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I do think, it's people's obviously situation with obviously having a squad as well. You'd have to factor in with obviously their yellow flags. It's just, for me, I just think if Dom, as he is quite, an aggressive player, going with someone like Stones really wouldn't make him any more better off in a mini league. Yeah, okay, it might stop him from sliding down a couple of places, but I think, I'd even go Dallas over Stonesy in the next few. I'd say get Stonesy back. I don't know then, because obviously
Yeah,
then you'd have
I
three
think so.
leads, but
Yeah.
yeah, I
it's
think maybe
interesting
go somewhere different.
because sorry to interject. Then I just had to, because when you said that word Dallas, that name, my thought was Dallas has got the double game week, and is he the better option over John Stones if you were arguing against those two for the next few? And what's really interesting as well is if we look at hats off to Jamie Axford, who's top of our mini league, but if you look at Jamie's team, I hate to use this word template, but there's a lot of players in there that if I were to transfer in, I might not make the jump. So we see Dallas on the bench. You got your Gundogan's, you got your Barnes, Antonio, and Bamford up front. Is if you're now, which we are, at the business end of the season, and you do want to make those jumps and take a risk, are we better off putting our head on the block and going for it, or do we cover? I mean, I know Max,
Well,
that you just said you're a bit more safe than others, but what would you recommend if I was taking on this team, as you can see in front of me?
I'd say
What would you
Vardy,
do?
mate. Vardy for DCL, looking at that team. Like we just looked at them fixtures for Leicester there. All right, they've got Liverpool, but after that, I mean, that's Jamie Vardy territory. Even go past 32?
Well, even if in the Europa League,
Look
'cause
at
they're
that.
going away, aren't they, in the Europa League?
Yeah,
Does that
mate.
bother you?
They're going to be wanting to get Champions League this year, Leicester, and I think they might actually have a sniff of doing it. I think that's going to be Jamie Vardy territory up until
Bit fear, isn't it?
36.
Bit
And then you've got 5 mil in the bank. You can still have another couple mil after this game week to then go and get your Stones or your Dallas. I don't know, or maybe wait for Vardy for next week. But
Yeah, I
I'd be
wouldn't put
getting
you off
Vardy in.
Vardy. I wouldn't put you off him. I mean, obviously the fixtures are there. He's an unbelievable player, does it every season. But one thing compared to the first half of the season is penalties aren't what they were at the beginning of
That's
the
true.
season. Like
How many
there's
did he
something had
score?
changed along the line. At one stage, Leicester had twice as many penalties as any other team. I
Yeah, I
believe
think they
that,
had 9, didn't they? They had 9
yeah,
in
and
November, and he scored like
something like that, and
7
everyone
out
else
of
had
9.
5, something like that. So
Crazy,
yeah,
actually. But yeah, that's
I
because of the
definitely
handball,
wouldn't put
isn't
you
it?
off going there. I think it really, it's almost a combination of where you are in your mini league slash overall rank compared to where you want to get to, and just how you like to play almost philosophically. I don't know, it's probably not the right word, but for me, like I'm happy to make the safe shout pretty much every week, because culminators over the season, like most people won't do that. Most people will find a week where they break and go for the riskier shout to try and get a bit of a kick that one particular week. But I feel like by doing what you just think is the best move, irrelevant of any kind of anything else, over a season-long period or a big stretch of game weeks, it's gonna pay off in the long run. Same with captaincy.
Okay, I see what you're saying there. So let's just sort of summarize that sort of section then. So we're looking at flags in the team. I want to know right now, both yours, take it in turns. I want to know if you had those players in your team that currently got flags next to them, what would you do? So, Digne.
Personally,
Okay.
I would be taking him out for stones.
Take him out for stones. What about you, James?
I'd probably actually go. I'd probably go Dallas.
Dallas. And for me, if you didn't have a Burnley defender, I'd go for a Burnley defender.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because
Yeah,
you've
so
got a
Burnley, Dallas, or John Stones. Great move. Okay, Antonio.
Well, we've said he's going to be fit, aren't we?
So you're keeping him?
Yeah, keep him for the next.
Antonio?
Keep him for Sheffield United and then get off. I'm going to
Do
wild
that.
card and then get off him. Yeah.
Do you feel the same, Max?
Yeah, I feel the same. I think it's a good fixture for him this week, and maybe you've got you and most people with all these flags will have other priorities.
Nice. What about DCL then? Who's your top transfer out for DCL?
Vardy.
Vardy, if you can get to him.
Yeah.
Bamford for me. I think Bamford could come close to Vardy even from now to the rest of the season. He's just.
What happens if you've got Bamford?
And you can't afford Vardy.
And Wilson's now dead, so.
Yeah, I would probably go Watkins then, to be honest. The player that you've already got in your teams on. I mean, he's got the fixtures; they're really good, and there's a hint of him having well, actually more than a hint. I think it's likely if there's a double in game week 26 that he will have a double in 26, and there's actually a hint of Villa being one of the only teams that actually could even have a double game week in game week 27 or 28 as well. So really, if you went someone like Watkins, someone maybe I should have spoken about a bit more earlier, you've got a chance of having 2 extra games over someone else, a different player, in the next 4 game weeks. You might have 6 games out of the player instead of 4.
Yeah.
He's in form, got the fixtures.
Yeah.
Why not?
I do
Absolutely.
like it.
I think as well, especially if you're not a Grealish owner, I think Ollie Watkins up front for Aston Villa.
45.
In a way, I actually think he's very similar to Bamford, isn't he? He gets lots of chances. He's in a team that they all play almost for the striker. And when I say that, I know Jack Grealish is the best player in that Villa team, but Jack Grealish has created so many chances. And who's he creating those chances for? Watkins.
Yeah,
I think Watkins is really, really appealing. And obviously, since put him in, he's had a goal and whatnot, which is great. And he's got Brighton, Leicester, Leeds, Wolves, Newcastle, Sheffield, Fulham. So in those next games, all the way up to the 3rd of April, some top fixtures there. And it's going to be really interesting, don't you think, to see where Villa are going to finish this season. A part of me now thinks they are going to be that team that do overperform. Like there's always that team that, they'll come like 6th or 7th or something like that. And then unless they make some big signings, they'll then finish like 17th and be struggling to stay in the Prem next year. Or they'll probably lose Jack Grealish. But yeah, I think Watkins is a top player. What about Justin then? Would you do the same then as for Digne? If you didn't have Dallas, you'd get Dallas. If you didn't have Burnley defender, you get Burnley defender. Other than like the double game weeks though, because one thing I want to move on to now, which actually leads in very nicely, is it a bit of FOMO to get a double game week player in just because they've got a double game week when actually there are players out there with just the single fixture that get overlooked and will outscore the double game week player?
Yeah, I think I'm massively overlooking Man United defenders. Shaw, for example, or Wan-Bissaka because of the Burnley defence. I think there's a massive chance Shaw could outscore someone like Tarky or Ben Mee over the 2 fixtures because of how attacking Shaw is. He looks absolutely fantastic at the minute. I'd even go and say he's the best left back in the league in the minute. And that's if Cancelo isn't actually playing left back. But because he is playing absolutely everywhere he wants. He played right back against Liverpool, defensive mid. But I think Shaw's absolutely banging at the minute. But yeah, that's my example of how a player in a single game week could actually do better than a double, but you should probably go with
Yeah.
percentages, don't you?
For me, I think it really comes down to if you plan to wildcard next week. I know I keep talking about something that hasn't actually been set in stone yet with this potential double in 26, but according to people that know a lot more about it than me, it seems quite likely that there's going to be a big double in 26. And I know a lot of people are planning to use their wildcard in preparation for that in game week 25. So in terms of your question, Dom, if people are hyping up about this little double too much, I think it all comes down to if you're going to use your wild card. If you're going to use your wild card next week or the week after, then why not try and get double Burnley defence or Barnes in or something a little bit. I know it's a bit out of my character. It's making me a bit queasy thinking about it, these kind of risky moves. But why not if you're going to wild card next week? For me, it all depends on that.
Yeah,
that's
I think
that's
cool actually, because you can definitely take those risks, and I definitely would be if I knew I was going to wild card for game week 25. Then my game week 24 team would probably be loaded up on some risky shouts, knowing that if they underperform, or they're just going to be leaving my team anyway. They're just there to target those fixtures. I love what you're saying there, James, and I hate to admit it because I don't know if I just loathe Luke Shaw. Like I don't know what it is about him. Like he, for me, he's played phenomenally in the last few game weeks. And what's great about him is he actually looks like he's going to get a ton of assists in every game. And if they keep, it's like you said, Max, it's a bit like the Digne thing, which I think is a really, really good point. Is for someone like Digne, who's 6 million, 6.1 million, you're almost saying you've already bagged your clean sheet and you're getting an assist.
Yeah, exactly.
If they don't do that, you're not worth that premium price. Whereas Luke Shaw's like the opposite of that. He's 4.8 million. Now Man United are looking good. He gets those assists, and now he can get the clean sheet as well.
Yeah.
So he's a very solid option. So for like the single game week player, I am looking at Luke Shaw, possibly maybe over Dallas. I that is a consideration. I mean, they're the same price. Maybe not. It is something I would weigh up.
Then the next game home to Newcastle as well, and that's a Newcastle without Wilson. So this is Man United, sorry. So I think he's a great punt, Luke Shaw. And yeah, for me, unless you are going to wildcard in 25, is Chelsea at home to Newcastle this week. Are we talking Alonso again? Are we talking, another Chelsea defender?
I shouted really he scored an own goal.
Yeah, well, that's just unbelievable. Isn't it? Lucky you wasn't the one that brought him in this week. Someone else was. So, but yeah, I think that's as far as I would go with the defenders. For me, it's all different circumstances, though, isn't it? So, but what are you what's your captaincy then, Dommy? You're thinking about how a double game week player can underperform against a one game week player. You've got a perfect game there with, like we've just said, Man United away at West Brom. Are you likely going to captain the likes of Bruno ahead of Gundogan or Sterling if you're in my boat or Max's boat? Because I've seen it a million times, haven't we? How a double game week player flops and the guy with the prime fixture nails it.
Do you know what, mate? I was one of those people who I captained Lewis Dunk in the season when he had that plum double game.
Same here.
And I think
you triple captained, didn't you, Gamer?
You always say I did, but no, I didn't.
Oh, sorry. Slipped my mind.
That's not you?
I captained him.
Yeah,
which is bad enough. Can I just say that was bad?
Did you get 2 points, if I remember rightly?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, captain is a real dilemma. I think you need to say to yourself, is Bruno Fernandes gonna outscore a Man City asset? And that's what you're asking yourself for me. And all the stats do point to the fact that Bruno will do it. He's away. He prefers playing away than at home. Pogba doesn't look like he's going to be playing because he's injured, which suits Bruno.
Does benefit Bruno statistically.
So for me, it's whether you're going to turn around and say, am I going to captain Bruno over, do you own Sterling, Gundogan, Jesus, or a defender? And at the moment, for me, it's really hard because I want that like that insurance of another game, because I know if City would to go out and boss Spurs and keep a clean sheet and Gundogan scores or gets an assist, and then he plays Everton, you're in Wonderland, aren't you?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great way of putting it, Dom, with the insurance. And I think it's such a hard one because you're a little bit different to me because you've got Gundogan compared to my Sterling. And I think Gundogan's almost definitely going to play 2 games out of both of the games. Probably not 90 minutes in both, but start both the games. Whereas for me, Sterling's a bit more of a risk, to be honest with you. And it's a little bit tricky, isn't it? Because you could easily see him being benched in one of them. And
I think the second one.
of course, obviously, I wouldn't captain Sterling against Spurs if it was a single game week. Obviously, I wouldn't even captain against Everton unless the rest of my big hitters had tough fixtures. So it does make you think, if he does miss one of those games, then I've just got a captain against what are both relatively tricky fixtures compared to Bruno's, which is just an absolute nailed on fantastic game week. However, saying that, Sterling is in pretty decent form, maybe not quite as good form as Gundogan. I think he's got 3 in his last 4 and 4 in his last 6. So
and only
form is
one
there
against Tottenham the first time they played as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't look too much into that. I think it's all about what's going on now with the fixtures. But yeah, I think Sterling, him and Gundogan both come off after 60 minutes against Swansea. That gives me a slight indication that they should start on Saturday. It's never good to second guess Pep, but yeah, it's the Everton game I worry about, because then they've obviously got they've got a week then to play again. Not sure they got a week Saturday, but then they've obviously got Arsenal, and then they've got away at who you got in the Champions League? Mönchengladbach, isn't it? So yeah, no, I think if I had Gundogan, I think it's actually an easier option because, like you said, the insurance are playing twice. But then if you were to have your Sterling captainer home to Spurs or Everton, or away at Everton, sorry, and then you've got Bruno sat there against the worst team in the league at the minute, that's a tough one.
He had an 11 drop when they met earlier at the season at home.
So that was that penalty that got retaken, wasn't it?
It's still 11 points, but just quickly though, is Gundogan on penalties for City? Because
Edison is
way in point as well for me.
Edison, mate, I've heard it. He's actually come out and said, hasn't he? Wow, no.
He said he could. I reckon it would still be Gundogan.
I think it'd be Gundogan.
Yeah, surely it's not Edison. I can't see Pep doing it, to be honest.
Nah, I know. Not in the league anyway.
3-4-0 up and it was late in the game, he might take the penalty. But
it's disrespectful though, isn't it? I think more than anything. But yeah, I probably would say Gundogan, but the fact he did miss his last one and the fact he did hook Sterling because he missed his last one. So I'd probably say Gundogan, but I would like to see Sterling on pens.
Okay, so I think we're all sort of in some sort of agreement then that we're sort of tossing and turning between, do we go Bruno Fernandes for the armband or do we go for a City asset being either Sterling or Gundogan if you own them? Thinking outside of that, do you see any player that could be a potential captain option if you own them with a good fixture?
Tarky. Big up
Pope.
Tarky.
Pope.
I laugh, but it could be. I mean, as a captain, obviously the double points. If he didn't get double figures with the captain score in this double game week, I'd be shocked. And for me, for your captain getting double figures is always the goal. That's the times people are captain, by the way. If he doesn't get 6 points this game week, I'll be shocked.
Do you know what no one's mentioned here, actually, which I thought would have come up, so I'm going to bring it up now. is there any love for the sideways movement of DCL to Richarlison and Richarlison captain?
No,
Not for me. Not for me.
I've owned Richarlison this year, and it didn't go as planned as I'd liked. He got pushed
2
off
goals
pens
against
by
Spurs in the FA Cup, mate.
True, but that just makes me even more excited to captain a Man City player. The fact that both Everton and Spurs conceded 4 against each other. I'm sat there, Man City, licking my lips like I can't wait to play against these two defenses. I know it's the FA Cup, but still, Spurs are a shambles at the back of the minute. And I think Everton aren't that much better. So,
Okay, I'll give you one more then. Is there any love for transferring DCL out if you've got a bit of money in the bank and putting the armband on Timo Werner?
no, mate.
I thought it was going to go a Chelsea way, and I thought it might have been Marcus Alonso, and you might have got some love from me. But just that form with Werner, when's it going to end? You know, it's as a Chelsea fan, it's painful, and I really still believe he's a great player. But when is that form going to end? It's just fucking terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, I
and
feel
I
sorry
don't.
for him.
Penalty against Tottenham. So
Yeah.
if that's the kickstart, anything, he didn't play. He wasn't even in the squad against Barnsley tonight. Tuchel obviously wants to get him firing. He's playing a Newcastle side there that's riddled with injuries. Is that potentially, like I say, if it's not a captain option, is it potentially an option to have him in your team?
Yeah, not bad. It's yeah, for the fixture, it's a good punt. Out of all the whole Chelsea team, I'd probably rather go Alonso, just because it still scares me having 3 strikers for Chelsea that kind of seem all on a level playing field somehow at the moment in terms of starting. So I'd rather clean up with that clean sheet with Alonso, and maybe it's some attacking returns. But yeah, no, it's not a crazy shout. Not a crazy shout.
I'd say it's crazy. But yeah, no, I think simple Man City playing against them two defenses. If you're going to be, for me, crazy would be not actually Bruno probably wouldn't be crazy, but that's as far as I go as a differential. I would
Just
hate to
going
not
back to
captain.
Sterling, just asking you two, with him having Spurs, Everton, and Arsenal before that Champions League fixture, do either of you think he's going to play all 3 of those fixtures before that Champions League game? Because
So
I can't see him playing all 3 of them.
Oh, Raheem here. So
Yeah,
I mean, this is, I
So it's
think,
Arsenal.
really important, and this is why, if anything, I am actually leaning more towards Bruno Fernandes as a captain option, because I do feel that even in a congested, squashed season, is Raheem Sterling going to play 3 big games in the middle of a Champions League game? And
Yeah.
my answer would be no, purely because Foden's amazing. Bernardo Silva is a workhorse. Jesus is coming back, and he got an assist off the bench when he played in the last game week. I hear Aguero's back in training now. So for me, there is a lot of that Pep roulette that could really sting you in the arse. So I would be concerned. Yeah.
Yeah,
I actually agree.
Concerned.
I'd say it's the Everton game you might miss out on.
I agree. And that concerns me even more, because then we're basically captaining against Spurs, and we'd obviously never do that. That's ridiculous. And I think Pep, it's still that elusive one for City, isn't it? I still think if you ask Pep what he'd rather win this season, it would be the Champions League over the Premier League. Maybe that's obvious.
Yeah,
but
I'd say so.
Because of that, they slipped up against these not so great teams, or still great teams, obviously, but lower level teams like Gladbach in the Champions League before. And I don't think he's going to be making that mistake again.
So interestingly, you say that, Max, because now that's actually got me thinking a little further. And you were obviously advocating to me earlier about putting John Stones in the team for Justin or for Digne. But if we were to actually dissect that one further, if you look at Man City's fixtures there, Tottenham, Everton, Arsenal, West Ham, Man United, all in the same months that they play the Champions League. Now, are three City players crucial for that period of time? Is there not the risk of rotation? And you could actually be stung by holding on to three Man City assets.
It's a fair point, Dom. It is a really fair point when you put it like that and actually look at the pictures in black and white combined with Champions League. I think it's a little bit of a different situation with attacking City players compared to defending City players. And when I say that, I'm actually kind of putting Gundogan in the bracket, a similar bracket as defending City players. One, because he's a similar price, and so you could easily keep hold of him, and you're not having your money tied up. And two,
I agree.
Just the nature of his role, I think he's going to play more minutes from now to the end of the season, or from now to the rest of this month than Sterling or any of the attacking players for that matter. So for me, I think it really depends. Long term, I don't see myself having Sterling. I'll probably take him out on the wild card if I do that soon. However, if I was someone like you with Cancelo and Gundogan, or even Stones as well, even if I had the three of them, I still think I wouldn't be planning to take either of those particular guys out, because they don't take up much of your budget. They've been keeping so many clean sheets this year. If they keep this up, then they'll be one of the best defensive champions, even though it doesn't feel like they play that defensively. We've seen, just because their clean sheet total will be closing in on 20 if they keep up this consistency. And so I really think you'd be doing all right to be keeping the two defenders and Gundogan because of his price in, even with those fixtures. Especially if you've got a squad like yours, because if you've got a big squad, then obviously you can cover it if they don't come on.
I was just going to say, I totally agree. I don't even see Gundogan as that much of a rotation risk with KDB out. He's not that much money. He's on pens. It's a ridiculous how much value he offers you. And also, you see these games on paper, and Man City have done it a number of times, and they've kept a clean sheet. So I actually wouldn't be too put off with keeping two Man City players. I am put off, obviously, by keeping Sterling. That's why he's going to be hooked, and I'm going to get Gundogan. But I do agree in the same sense as how Gundogan is he's your KDB at the minute, isn't he, for Man City?
Yeah, and just to kind of extend on that, Jamie, it's quite sad as a Sterling owner and a person that's captained Sterling for a long time, like we all have, that a player like Gundogan for half the price is actually the better pick. If you offered me Sterling or Gundogan right now, I'm not going to spend a transfer on it, but I'd rather Gundogan. And I think that is also reflected in my thoughts for the captaincy. If we're saying who would I rather captain, Sterling or Gundogan this week, it would be Gundogan.
Yeah.
So I think he's a closer call for you, Dom.
Yeah, but I think what is actually impacting like your thinking there is when you see Sterling and Gundogan next to each other, if you own both and you were to pick the captain, you're drawn to the price of the premium player. You almost think you have to captain the player who costs more money because he's the better option.
That's why I went
performance in previous years as well.
Yeah.
Can't get that out of your head. That really, if you just start playing the game this year, I feel like you'd make a more informed decision than if you were like us and probably many people listening to this who've been playing it for many years and had good memories of Sterling and so on. It really does influence your thinking too much, I think.
It definitely does.
I'm definitely guilty of that.
Definitely.
So with 5 mil,
let's bring something onto you right now, because we've not spoke about it. It's something James and we do every week. We do our weekly flutter. So I'm going to just ask you off the cusp, looking at those fixtures.
I'll get the old.
Who would you back in your game week tip? Who do you think is going to win? Just pick your one team, Max.
Are we talking about underdog or just any team?
You can pick anyone you want for the bet of the week, mate.
I'd have to go Chelsea then. Newcastle with Wilson out, I can't see them scoring. Chelsea at home, looking pretty decent under the new manager. Yeah, it'd be Chelsea.
James?
I'm actually going to go with... I'm going to go Southampton to beat Wolves.
Oh, two in a week.
2 in a week.
Is Danny Ings an option
It's
there?
Danny Ings. Danny Ings has just made me realise. I think Wolves struggle for goals. They will score against McCarthy because he is awful. But I think Southampton will score more.
Lovely. So we've got Chelsea, we've got Southampton. Oh, I'm looking at that, and there's a couple I like, but I think my shout is going to be Liverpool away at Leicester in the early kickoff.
Oh no, I was going to say Leicester are very good value. 5-2.
I just want to say there's been some very sad news about the death of Jurgen Klopp's mother recently.
Oh shit.
It's the early kickoff. I think there's been some demons there. I think Liverpool are going to go out and win, and we're going to be looking at this, and I'm going to be looking at TAA with a goal and an assist.
Hope not.
Do you own him? Do you own TAA by any chance? I actually didn't even look at Leicester then, but I think Leicester are a massive price. 5-2 at home. Their home form is a joke. Liverpool were absolutely shocking. They've just been absolutely smashed up by Man City. I would stay as far away from Liverpool as possible. But there you go.
Not looking at any odds. How have none of us picked United?
Yeah, I put my neck on the line actually picking Southampton, but
well,
I think you have as well.
I knew everyone would say Liverpool probably wouldn't win, but I think Liverpool will go out.
I think it's a great time
nicely as well. Probably 3-1 if that. If Leicester score. But is there anything else you want to add to this episode of the Pod, Max? Because it's been great having you on. So is there anything you want to sort of conclude with?
Only just, I know I've spoke about it quite a lot, but just keep an eye out for some latest news coming out. I was hoping we'd get it before this latest game week deadline about the double game week in 26. I think everyone's got to keep their eyes peeled of that. I'm sure everyone who's on Twitter will see it in a flash as soon as it's released. But that would just be it, really. Looking forward to that, and try to plan your moves towards that if you don't have a wild card, because it looks like it's going to be a pretty big one and a potential to use your bench boost in it as well, and wildcard into your bench boost in that double game week if possible. So keep your eye out. Looking forward for that.
Awesome, Max. Well, look, it's been great having you on. I look forward to having you on towards the end of the season, just to see how things are going, just to have you back on. It'd be great. Remember, guys, we are not another FPL podcast. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube. Give us a like, give us a share, give us a subscribe. We need all the support from the community. We hope you have green arrows in game week 24. It's a goodbye from me.
It's a good night from me.
Good night, all.